That's that. 10-1 has become 11-7 and an inglorious first-round playoff exit for the defending NFC champions. Tonight, we'll conduct a post-mortem on the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles with Sal Paolantonio and Ron Jaworski conducting the actual operation. Sean Green will join us. He's got your divisional round spreads and props. And how about them Cowboys? That's all next on a divisional round edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a divisional round edition of This Week in Pro Football. Here on JAKIB Sports, Pat Callahan joining you. And we'll take you through for the next hour plus. Joined by the great Sal Paolantonio and by former Eagles great Ron Jaworski at the top of the next hour to discuss what is obviously a somber subject, and that is what the hell happened to the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles. No two gentlemen better suited to discuss that than the two guys with whom I'll be speaking tonight. Sean Green will be joining me in the middle of the hour to talk about the divisional round and where the spreads and props fall out for what, quite frankly, is now, to me anyway, less of a dramatic divisional round. I mean, Tampa Bay Detroit is probably going to be a good game. I was impressed with the Bucs Monday, but some of the sizzle is gone. The Dallas Cowboys, I use the term inglorious to mention the Eagles exit. Well, they look like the 2000 Ravens compared to how the Cowboys looked on Sunday against the 7-seed Green Bay Packers. We'll talk to both Sal and to Jaws about that and what happens on a team sideline when the game starts to get away from them. So that'll be interesting to talk about that. The Cowboys losing, as I mentioned, and in the AFC, I'll talk about this later. The divisional round really had only one. The wildcard round had only one good game in it, and that was the Rams and the Detroit Lions. Detroit comes away a 1-point winner in a very hard-fought game up in Detroit. The Lions, the 3 seed, will now get to host a second playoff game against Tampa because Dallas lost. All right, Xander, why don't you bring up the divisional round here? We'll take a look at, you can see here, this is the original playoff schedule, and the teams that are grayed out, obviously, were the losers. Kansas City easily beats Miami in the Peacock game. I'll talk about that later, 26-7. Buffalo really was never threatened by the Pittsburgh Steelers, 31-17. Houston, as I mentioned, 45-14 over the Cleveland Browns. I don't know what happened there. The real Joe Flacco showed up at a very inopportune time for the Browns. And the NFC, Green Bay, as I mentioned, just a shocking win over Dallas. And let's not talk 48-32. That was 48-16 in the fourth quarter for the home Cowboys, a team that had not lost at home all season long and were absolutely befuddled on both sides of the ball by the 7-seed Packers. I mentioned the Lions defeating the Rams, and then your Philadelphia Eagles, again, taking the field seemingly listless against the Tampa Bay Bucs, and lo and behold, go down 32-9 in a game that was every bit as close as 32-9 would indicate. Just not a good game at all by the Eagles, and really any stage of the ball, offense, defense, coaching. The Eagles just a fitting end to a team that over the last 7 weeks simply just could not muster up the emotion, or the smarts, the game plan, the big plays to win games. And it was just incredible how meekly I thought the Eagles went out on Monday night. The usual fallout really had already happened in terms of coaching. Thank you, Xander. The usual fallout had already happened. But a couple surprised me, and that is Mike McCarthy certainly being retained in Dallas. That I did not see coming. Now, McCarthy's had 3 straight 12-5 seasons in Dallas, but I don't think that's the measuring stick for a team like the Cowboys, right? And I'm surprised that Jerry Jones is going to give him another shot. He has a year left on his contract. I dare say there'll be no extension for Mike McCarthy, pending what happens next January in Dallas. But it looks like the Cowboys will be the same staff. Dan Quinn will be the defensive coordinator again if he doesn't get a head coaching job. And I would hazard the guess that what everybody saw on Sunday may cost Dan Quinn a serious look from anybody, any of the 7 openings in the NFL right now. We'll talk about the coaching openings later on. But not a good look at all in Dallas, but he stays. And then Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni will remain, at least now, as head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, there's some precedent here. If you remember, Doug Peterson was still the coach of the Eagles the year he left, and he sat down with Jeff Lurie, and they talked about coaching staff and coaching changes that Lurie wanted made. And very suddenly, Doug Peterson was not the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't think Sirianni's return is stamped yet. But it looks right now, from what I understand, that he and Howie Roseman are looking at available offensive and defensive coordinators and how to restructure that staff. So for now, it's both coaches in the NFC East, which had a very disappointing playoff showing. Last year in the divisional round, 3 NFC East teams were around. This year, none are around. So quite a difference from the NFC East to the last year to this year. Why don't we welcome this gentleman in right now? Of course, the host of the NFL Matchup Show and long time national correspondent for ESPN, Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how are you?
Oh, good, Pat. Real good. I mean, it's been a wild week of travel. Snowstorm in between a couple of games Monday night, and I'm going over to Baltimore for Texans at Ravens. So,
right.
Trying to shoehorn it all in with the bad weather, but boy, oh boy, that was difficult to take on Monday night in Tampa. It really was.
We'll talk in a few minutes. Sal will be covering that Ravens and Texas game, and there's an interesting angle to that I want to talk with Sal about, which is C.J. Stroud. If he can keep that kind of magic going, I think Houston can threaten the Ravens. But we'll talk to Sal about that. But Sal, let me start with this. On Wednesday, January the 10th. Prescient soul that you normally are, you wrote to me, this game will come down, talking about Eagles-Bucks, to which quarterback has designed throws to get the ball out, has the best protection plan, and recognizes and reacts quickly to the blitz. So let's start with that. How do you think that went on Monday night?
Yeah, Pat, I wrote those notes to you based on our film study here at NFL Films, getting ready for the matchup show, and also, of course, with the great next-gen stats that we have at ESPN. You know, it was an amalgam of research and film study, and I wrote it to you before the Monday night game because, to me, I'm always looking at 3 critical points offensively and defensively, and it stuck out for both football teams. So the proof is in the results. Todd Bowles blitzed Jalen Hurts, 59% of Hurts' dropbacks, resulting in 2 sacks and an interception and a completion rate of under 30%. Under 30%. So, you know, he didn't have the answers to the tests. And right now in the NFL, when you're playing at this level, this late in January, your quarterback needs to have good answers to the test once he gets to the line of scrimmage, pre-snap, and then post-snap once the defense changes. Because in the NFL, the defenses always give you one look and then they change it to another look. And, you know, Pat, I kind of want to disagree with you about this weekend in one specific respect. We have right now 8 quarterbacks who are playing, or young quarterbacks that are playing at a high level because of their relationship with their head coach. And that's why they are where they are. C.J. Stroud has not turned the ball over since week 12. Lamar Jackson is second in that category. Bringing in Todd Monken was a revelation for Lamar Jackson. This is something you and I talked about in September, and it's come to fruition. Jordan Love and Brock Purdy Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff, all of these guys have really good, close relationships with the head coach, offensive coordinator, and play caller. And that is really the difference. It really is.
All right. All right. Well, then let's segue to Monday night. Obviously, then did the Eagles quarterback and the Eagles coach have that kind of relationship? And if not, when they went 10-1, you figure they have it. What happened from 10-1 to 11-7 to that relationship?
Well, I don't know whether or not the relationship is quote unquote on ice or fractured or not. It's certainly not working. I think one team's just started to blitz Jalen Hurts. Right. They turned the blitz up from 20 to 30 to 40, and they could see teams adjusted. NFL is a game of adjustments, and teams started to blitz Jalen Hurts when they saw he had no answer, and they saw he wasn't going to run with the football. That was it, lights out. So I think that's the number one thing, the number one problem. And you could see it, in the frustration with A.J. Brown.
Right.
And Dallas Goedert went out with an injury.
Right.
So, there was a lot of things. But the bottom line is, whatever the Eagles are going to do, and right now it is 6 p.m. on January 18th, and on January 19th, Nick Sirianni is supposed to have his exit interview with Jeffrey Lurie. That's supposed to happen on a Friday in Philadelphia. It's supposed to be in the middle of a snowstorm. It's going to happen.
Right.
Jeff Lurie is coming up from the Caribbean where he had a brief respite. And, they're going to try to figure it out. But whatever they figure out, they have to figure out how Jalen Hurts is going to get better. Who are you going to bring in here? What offensive system are you going to have? If Nick Sirianni has earned the right to come back, earned the right to fix this, and there are a lot of people who believe that he has earned that right to do it. Right. What is the plan for the quarterback? Because the list is obvious. Those 8 quarterbacks, Pat.
Yeah.
The list is obvious. The relationships are obvious.
Okay.
That's the key.
Well, yeah, you laid it out. You laid it out very well right there. When we get back, then I'm going to start off with that and ask you, a man who has stood on hundreds of NFL sidelines. I think people want to know if you, who were there Monday night, just noticed what, if anything, is wrong or was wrong on the Eagles sideline, and what is it that precipitated it? Because the team looked lifeless during the game. I want to get that from you. We're going to talk more about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, and then we'll go, as always, we'll take Sal through the divisional round and lightning round and get his opinions on that. We'll do that all next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Celebrate your victories in style at Spring Mill Country Club. From Eagles wins to baby showers, weddings to birthdays, our picturesque venue is ready to host your special events. Make memories that last a lifetime in our stunning surroundings. Call Spring Mill today at 215-675-6000 and elevate your next event to unforgettable heights. Contact us now to book 215-675-6000.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Hi, welcome back. This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan here with the great Sal Paolantonio. the host of the NFL Matchup Show, and of course the author of Philly Special. Back when times were a lot happier here in South Philadelphia. Sal, let me just hit you with this. I thought there were two plays, both in the third quarter of that Monday night game, that really crystallized what apparently has happened here over the last 7 or 8 weeks. The first was the safety that Jalen Hurts took when the play started from the Eagles 14. He ended up taking a safety because he just the whole play seemed to break down, and Hurts just didn't appear to have the wherewithal just get rid of the ball and live to fight another day. That safety put the Eagles down by 2 scores because they took a point off the board at the end of the first half. The second play was the 56-yard touchdown. Trey Palmer, let's face it, he's like 4th or 5th Tampa Bay receiver, just runs unopposed through the Eagles secondary for a 56-yard touchdown, puts the game out of reach. Just use those 2 plays for me and just tell me, are they not a microcosm of what apparently has happened to the Eagles over the last 2 months?
I believe you're correct. There's no question about that, Pat. It's Jalen Hurts not making quick decisions, not being aware of the circumstances of the game, whatever it is in terms of the coaching or play calling or approach or just the play of the quarterback. It all came to a head. You can't take a safety ever from 14 yards out, and especially in the postseason.
Right.
That kind of thing has to be coached into a quarterback's mind. What are you doing here if there is no option left?
Right.
Well, you're getting rid of the football in a way that doesn't hurt your team.
Right.
That has got to be pounded into the quarterback's head.
Right.
And for whatever reason, it didn't take. And that I believe that you are correct. It is emblematic. That play is emblematic of the last 7 weeks of Jalen Hurts' struggles. Now, the other thing is, if you look at that touchdown catch and run, first of all, like you said, that wide receiver is 4th or 5th on the depth chart for the Bucs. And the Eagles don't even have a 3rd wide receiver right now.
Yeah.
It shows you the lack of depth that the Eagles have at wide receiver, and it
Right.
shows that they are unable to fix their problems and giving up big plays down the stretch.
Right.
So when you look at those 2 plays, and I think a lot of people who follow this team, and I always say to you, and you've heard me say it, the fans matter in Philadelphia. Why? They're smart. They know what the score is. They know what's going on. They're paying attention to every nuance of every play of every game. We have, in my view, the smartest fans in the league. People around the country don't agree with me, and they're wrong, because this town is paying attention on every level all of the time. Right. You wake up, you go to work, you take care of your family, and you watch the Eagles. That's the list.
That's it.
That's the list. Then when you're done with 3, you go back to 1. It's 1, 2, 3. And sometimes for some people, they have their priorities mixed up. And you know, sometimes it's the first priority. But whatever that is, for me it is, obviously. But Pat, so people are paying attention in this town, and they know what's going on with the football team. Right. And they're saying to themselves, well, what happened on that wide receiver catch and run, what happened with Jalen Hurts was happening 7 weeks ago. So the head coach, the coaching staff has not been able to fix it for 7 weeks. Can we trust that they can still do it?
Right. Well, there you go.
That's the crux of the problem right there.
I was just about to ask you, in his meeting tomorrow with Jeff Lurie, what does Nick Sirianni need to say to convince Jeff Lurie that he's the guy to do what you just described?
Yeah. Well, he's got to have a specific I'm telling you, I'll go back to the first thing I said, Pat. He's got to have a specific plan, convince the owner that the $250 million that he has spent on Jalen Hurts has been invested wisely.
Right.
Pat, you worked for a major corporation for years. In every boardroom that you attended, every boardroom meeting that you attended, what was the discussion? What are our assets?
That's
and
true.
how are we putting them to use?
How are we deploying those assets to make money? You got it.
To make money.
Achieve returns. You got it.
Yeah, I've sat in many news meetings, and I've sat in many wardrooms, and on many ships. The captain of the ship says, "What are our assets right now?" And how are we deploying those assets to win?
All right.
That's what people do.
Right.
That's what people do. No matter if you're in government, football, corporations, military.
Right.
What are our assets? How are we protecting them, nurturing them, growing them so that we can win on the battlefield of life?
Right. All right. Well said. Well said. Okay, let's talk about some of those assets, maybe some of the more marginal assets. Let me throw a few names out at you as an example. Bradbury, Bayard, Shaq Leonard, who really never really stepped in any type of meaningful role with the Eagles. Are these examples of three names and maybe more, Sal, that are not going to be with the Eagles come 2024?
Yeah, the Eagles have a lot of free agents, but I think the number one hole is going to be Jason Kelce.
Yeah.
So Jalen Hurts wakes up for spring workouts in April. In a couple of months, there's no Jason Kelce. He may have a new offensive coordinator. He may have a new head coach.
Right.
So that's a huge transition for a guy who was 3 points away from winning the Super Bowl and had a double-digit lead at halftime in the last Super Bowl that was played, and is the reigning NFC champ.
Right.
So let's focus on what's important right now. And I'm going to keep coming back to the quarterback. I'm sorry, Pat. It's a quarterback league. You know that, and I know that. The reason why these 8 teams are alive, Jordan Love has Pat, since week 12.
I know.
Jordan Love has 19 touchdown passes and 1 interception. That's why the Packers are in San Francisco and the Eagles are not. That's the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? How certain teams can pull that off. The Packers have gone from Bart Starr to Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, now to this kid. Now, it's early yet for this kid, but boy, oh boy, he tore.
Okay, let's go through it. Let's go through it. So Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi relationship, it was father and son.
Right.
Holmgren and Favre.
Brett Favre, right. Right.
Father and son. I mean,
absolutely. That was father and his wayward son. That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. When Aaron Rodgers was young and Mike McCarthy, that was the kind of relationship you want. I think for all the things about Mike McCarthy, he's still a good designer and play caller.
Right.
And LaFleur and Jordan Love.
Yeah.
You know, you take Aaron Rodgers out of the equation, you know, you send the big brother off to college, and now all of a sudden, you've got this great relationship between Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love.
So how damaging with the hindsight was then the departure of Shane Steichen from the Eagles sideline or the coach's booth relative to Jalen Hurts?
I think it has to be the number one factor.
Yeah. Yeah. It certainly seems like it because he was not. I mean, he just looks so distant on the sideline. He just sits down on the sideline, and you don't know what he's thinking. But it doesn't seem. I mean, for all his foibles, Russell Wilson never stops going up and down the sideline, shaking hands, clapping, and let's go, guys, let's rally the troops. Jalen Hurts so distant, seemingly, Sal, on the Eagles sideline, especially when they're losing.
You know, Pat, I wasn't a professional athlete, but I keep bringing up my military experience because when you're in a highly competitive environment, like the military, like corporate finance, like professional sports, it takes hard, smart coaching to get the job done. You cannot feed people pablum and pudding and expect things to go right all the time. Right. You can't, Pat. Right. You know that.
Right.
That's what that is a fact.
Yep. Yep, you got that right.
Any father or mother will tell you the same thing.
Sal Pat, let's do the lightning round here. I want you at your sharpest here. Let's start with these divisional round games, the one you're covering Saturday, Houston at the Ravens. Now, there's two things at work here, Sal. One is the Ravens have a little bit of an anvil around their necks, too. They have had a hell of a time getting out of these early round games. And now they're up against a kid that I think, if he stays as unflappable as he's been, as you pointed out, in the last month or month and a half, does Houston have a shot here?
Houston has a shot, but Baltimore's defense will be the difference. Baltimore has more pass rushers than the Cleveland Browns. They are going to come after, and they actually use more disguised blitzes and the illusion of blitzing than Jim Schwartz does. Right. Listen, 9.5 is a big number. I would never do that. Give 9.5 in this situation, especially with this quarterback.
All right. Sal, the Saturday night game, Green Bay at San Francisco, the 7 seed now going to the well-rested 1 seed. Before you mention anything about this game, just give me a sentence or two on what the hell happened to the Cowboys Sunday in Dallas. It was almost fast. Sal was like watching a car crash in slow motion, wasn't it? And just give me your take on it. What is it about the Cowboys? Never mind the Eagles.
Somebody described the game as a slow rolling to the apocalypse for the Cowboys. But Pat, I'm here. I'm going to give it to you real succinctly because it is the lightning round. The Cowboys were not ready for the Packers. The Niners will be ready for the Packers.
There you go. There you go. That's about as good a way. I'm sure, Sal, you're going to be right. San Francisco a 10-point favorite. Kansas City at Buffalo. This is the third go-round now of the Mahomes-Allen rivalry. How do you see this? Do you think Kansas City has a chance to go into Buffalo against right now what is a very good Bills team?
I do. I do think they have a chance to go into Buffalo and win that game, Pat. I have actually covered all of the Allen Mahomes prize fights, and they have been really prize fights full of haymakers. Nobody's out there, jabbing. Everybody's throwing big punches.
Right.
And I think in the end, Sean McDermott somehow, some way makes some coaching mistake and allows Andy Reid to waltz out of there with a win. I think we're seeing Kansas City at Baltimore in the AFC Championship game. And then things will get real tight in the Charm City next Sunday.
All right. And so the last one, Tampa Bay at Detroit. The Lions, I think they escaped there. I mean, that was a tough game. Lions are good, Sal. Tampa Bay, I think Tampa Bay has gone as far as they can go here, having to go to Detroit, a very loud stadium. The Lions playing host to the Bucs.
Pat, I went into Todd Bowles' office after the game on Monday night. I've known him for years. After he did his press conference, I went into his office and I sat down and I looked at him and I said, "You're not done blitzing yet, are you?" And he said, "Nope."
Yeah. And Jared Goff is susceptible to that now. You mentioned it,
One word, Pat. That's all he gave me. Nope, yeah. I'm not done.
Okay.
He is blitz happy right now.
Yeah.
And there's an old saying, right? You live by the blitz, you die by the blitz.
Right.
But right now they're living by the blitz. And I do have a rooting interest. I really like Baker Mayfield. I've spent a lot of time with him. I like him a lot. And he is about as clear-eyed and tough as they come.
Yeah, he is. He is.
I have spent a lot of time with him, and I root for him. He's the ultimate underdog. So I'd like to see the Bucs go in there and win. I'd like to see the Packers beat the Niners. I'd like to see Uncle Sal get on an American Airlines flight from Philadelphia down to Tampa for the NFC Championship game. That's what I'd like to see, Pat Callahan.
Yeah, I think you're going west, young man. I think you're going west. That's where you're going. But Sal, I appreciate all the time. Thank you very much. We look forward to your coverage of Texans and Ravens. We look forward to the matchup show.
Matchup show is Saturday morning, ESPN2. Best way to watch it right now, ESPN Plus, or for you old folks, DVR. Me and you, Pat, we go to the DVR and record it, and that's the way we get it.
All right. Sal, pal, thank you very much, pal. Stay well. Have a safe trip, and we'll talk to you next week. All right.
Pat Callahan, love it.
All right. Sal Paolantonio joining me there for his usual extended stay, and thank you very much to Sal. All right, when we get back, Sean Green is going to join me. We're going to talk some spreads and some props. And let's Sean weigh in, one of the biggest Eagle fans ever, on what he saw on Monday night. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. But that's not all. They are excited to join forces with another pillar of the community banking world in Eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank. Their team of professionals will fit seamlessly into First Bank's culture of dedication and understanding your financial aspirations to fuel your success. With a deep-rooted commitment to Eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank stands as a testament to community values and unwavering support. Experience the difference of real relationships and dedicated personal bankers. Connect with any member of the team today at our Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or you can call them directly at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC. At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@whistpearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@whistpearl.com.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you. And off of Sal Paolantonio, we go to this guy here from probably if you're from Vegas, that would be the great Sean Green, the host of the Sports Gambling Podcast. Sean, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Can't complain. Unfortunately, our teams both got knocked out, but felt like a merciful killing there for the Eagles.
I thought the Rams, I don't know. The Rams certainly could have won that game.
It was, yeah. I mean, yeah, I thought they had a real live chance as well. But I mean, they killed, as far as looking forward for the Rams, they killed the draft. I mean, they really did. I know everyone made fun of them for, getting rid of all their picks, but the picks they had, they really killed it. So
they did kill it. And I hope Sean Stafford can last them well. I thought they get one more year out of him. He looked absolutely outstanding at the end of the year, including that game Sunday. If they can keep him standing upright, fortify that offensive line, Rams are going to be tough. That's going to be a tough division next year, NFC West. But the NFC East, Sean, let me get your take. First, I'll give you the easy one. What in the hell did you see in Dallas? And I'm sure you jumped on Green Bay minus minus 15 on the teaser line. What did you see happen there? And how surprised are you that Mike McCarthy's still the Cowboys head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I was on Packers money line. I thought they had a real chance. I didn't, even as much as a Cowboys hater as I am, I didn't think it would be that easy in some ways for the Packers. And you look at the score, you think like, oh, it's a shootout, blah, blah, blah. But no, they were getting destroyed. And then Packers just kind of sat back and let them run the clock out and get a bunch of garbage points. But, I mean, just kind of a failure on all parts. Dak looked pretty lost there running the offense, even though you got CeeDee Lamb. And then on the defensive side, Dan Quinn's supposed to be in the mix here for some head coaching jobs. Yeah. That's not what you want as your last resume bullets in that game. I mean, because, and as much as it's the Cowboys collapsed and whatever, I think just you have to give a ton of credit to this Packers team. Jordan Love has been playing at a really elite level here. It's a small amount of time, but he has been making some very, very high-level throws. So I think hats off to the Packers and their offense.
From what I understand, the Cowboys were concerned. They play man more than any other team in the NFL, but they were concerned going into this game that their two corners could hold up with the Packers' speedy receivers. So they spent the week really shifting to more of a zone coverage. And you can see, Sean, that it didn't take. They didn't know what the hell was going on. That one touchdown that he threw, when he just hauled off and launched the ball up in the air, that Packer receiver stood there for about 4 seconds waiting for the ball to come down, then ran basically untouched into the end zone. The Cowboys they just fell apart on both sides of the ball. It was almost a fascinating thing to see, right? But Philadelphia, now I'm afraid we have to be equal opportunity here, Sean. What is it about the Eagles? Didn't you get the sense, Sean, that the Eagles entered the game without any appreciable intent of winning it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find a lot of positives. I guess the positive would be the Devonta Smith had a very good game, but you're right. I mean, I think for me, this team, came into the season. It's always tough the year after your team loses the Super Bowl, right? It's always tough to get up. And they always talk about the Super Bowl hangover, and this team's hangover hit, but it didn't hit until later on in the season, and it hit really bad. Yeah. I think something mentally happened after they lost to that 49ers team, and they said, hey, we're not winning the Super Bowl. Yeah. Or something that they felt internally, like, hey, we're not winning the Super Bowl. This season was all about winning the Super Bowl, or the Super Bowl's or the season's a complete disaster. Right. And I think they had a wake-up call and realized, hey, we're not winning the Super Bowl, and mentally kind of just hit that wall. I think the combination of last season, this season, they just looked mentally, physically drained, exhausted, not competing. You can make excuses, injuries, etc. But yeah, it was just a low level of play across the board. I think coaching, really, it has to start with coaching. I mean, if all the players are playing down, I think you have to look at the head coach. I mean, certainly Jalen Hurts has had his issues, but I think it starts there with Nick Sirianni. And if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, I'm saying, all right, Nick, this year, what players improved because of your coaching?
Right.
I think that's a tough conversation.
Yep. But I tell you, the explanation or the theory you just put forth relative to the Eagles' collapse is as good as any I've heard. That they just at least subconsciously recognized, doused by the Niners, that this is not our year. And I think
they knew after those games, it's like, hey, it's not happening for us.
Right. And they're a veteran team, and they might more or less have just checked out, saying that all of a sudden I'm exhausted. And
it's not good, but it's the only theory I got that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, let's turn our attention here to the weekend, Sean. The number 2 seed Cowboys out, the number 5 seed Eagles out. In the NFC, you've got a streaking Packers team going to San Francisco off a 1 seed, off a week's rest. San Francisco, a 10-point favorite here. The odds makers don't seem to think that Jordan Love's going to keep up this magical run he's on. How do you see it?
Yeah, part of me, I'm not a huge fan personally of the 49ers, but trying to put that aside, I think this is a decent matchup, especially when you're talking about 9.5, 10 points for the Packers. You look at teams, especially the teams that rested that final week and then, also had a bye week. It's tough, especially against the spread. In that situation, 1-6, last 7 games in that situation. I mean, really, when have they had that one game against the Commanders. Commanders weren't really much of an opponent there. And then the last game that they really played, you would have to go all the way back to Christmas Day where they got destroyed by the Baltimore Ravens. So, I mean, this could be a little bit of a wake up for a team that's dialed in, laser focus. And how do you beat the 49ers, Pat? You got to get out to that early lead. And if they come out with any rust, any sleepiness, there's going to be a real opportunity for the Packers team. And if you remember from that Packers-Cowboys game, the Packers won the toss. They elected to receive. Most teams kick it away.
Almost everyone picked the first. But you're exactly right. Wait, look at you on your game tonight, pal. And I'd love to see the Packers do it again, Sean, Saturday night. If they win that toss, take the ball. That's where your strength is. Take the ball, and you're right. Get up 7-0. I think there's something tangible, Sean, to that point, and like for instance, the Cowboys, all of a sudden they were down 7-0, and look, we've all played sports, intramural, whatever, and we've all been on teams that were heavily favored, and all of a sudden you fall behind, and there's a tangible sense of panic that creeps onto a sideline or a bench or whatever it is, and I think that hit the Cowboys in spades, and I think that you're right. That's the way the Packers can jump on the Niners early.
Well, and kind of adding on to that, now normally when you see a team this favored by this many points in the playoffs, it's because one quarterback inevitably has a lot more experience than the other quarterback. But let's look at Brock Purdy. He's played in one game against Seattle, and then he got knocked out fairly early against the Eagles in that NFC Championship. So, he doesn't have like a ton of playoff experience compared to even, Jordan Love.
Right. That's right. So one team in that game, one team's playing with house money, and the other team is expected to win the Super Bowl. So you're right. So it'll be fascinating to see if the Packers jump on them. If not, I think San Francisco cruises if they get the first touchdown. But where are you going with that one? You're like you like Green Bay, though. You'll take the 10.
Yeah, I'll take the points. Give me the points. Yeah. But again, this is a good one to your point and to what I was saying as well. Good game, maybe a live betting, because if 49ers get out to a lead, look out.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The other Saturday game, Sal Paolantonio talked extensively about this game. He's covering it for ESPN. Houston coming off a shellacking of the real Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
Travels to the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now, I have my doubts about Lamar. January Lamar. October, November Lamar, excellent. January Lamar has not been that good. Does Houston have any kind of a puncher's chance here, Sean?
Oh, sure they do. I mean, you watch that, you put on the tape of that first game of the season. And again, it was CJ Stroud's first start. He's improved tremendously since then, but they were hanging around. They were able to move the ball up and down on the field. They missed some red zone stuff there, but they kept it competitive. And, kind of coming back to the similar situation of the 49ers, like the Ravens could be kind of rusty. And you look at one of their games, they didn't lose, but they came out fairly flat. You remember it was against your Rams. They were coming off the bye there. Lamar didn't look particularly sharp. Turnovers were a little bit of an issue. And fumbling, I think, is really Lamar's, guys playing at the MVP level deserves the MVP. But I do think fumbling is one of his weaknesses here. Fumbled twice against the Texans first time around. I think that's a little ace up the sleeve of the Houston Texans. If they can get a fumble recovery, look out. And, I don't think this Texans team is necessarily going to be scared off of the Ravens. Now, again, Ravens are a talented team, but I think the Texans are going to be able to hang around.
All right. Sunday's games will start with Tampa Bay and Detroit. The Lions barely escaping the Rams, I thought, but they got that playoff win under their belts. They're home again against a Tampa Bay team that may fit my house money idea, because no one, I don't care, they're the 4th seed. No one thought the Bucs were going to be any kind of a postseason threat. Does Tampa, you think, have a chance going into this game? Tampa right now they're still a 7-point number here against the Lions.
Yeah, I think first off, it's way too many points. I do think they're a live dog, particularly of these groups. I'm definitely taking Bucs in the points. I mean, Mike Evans against this Detroit secondary, we saw what Puka Nacua was able to do. I think they can do a lot of that. And then just, you look at the spot situation here. I mean, Detroit was ready to have the parade right after the game. I mean, grown men crying, people hugging, embracing, and it's awesome for the city of Detroit. They have a great fan base. I'm glad they got a playoff win. But, man, the letdown is just sitting right there. And you got Todd Bowles, who can dial up some pressure against Jared Goff. Now, certainly, Amon-Ra, I think, should still have a good game against the Bucs secondary. But, yeah, I think this Bucs team is fast and loose, nothing to lose. And, just the Lions, man, they won their Super Bowl. If the Lions get blown out in this game, it's still one of the greatest seasons in Lions history, So
that's a good point. All right, so you're 3-0 with the underdogs right now.
I love the dogs this week, yeah.
Now we get to the 4th one, which is the thriller in Manila of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, the third installment of their postseason rivalry. Kansas City, a 3-point dog or thereabouts in Buffalo. How do you see this one?
Yeah, it's always scary when I'm either on all favorites, all dogs. But I couldn't get away from this Chiefs team. I'm taking them here again. I mean, let's just start off with the 2 days rest differential. That's big, especially come playoff time. Bills played on Monday against a decent Steelers team. Meanwhile, the Chiefs were already had their game done Saturday. I'm sure Andy Reid was already scheming up for the Bills and getting ready for this game. And really, you look at I could talk myself into the Bills if it wasn't for the defensive injuries. And we saw Mason Rudolph be able to throw on this Bills team, be able to get Deontay Johnson open. Like, they were able to move the ball against this Bills team. And you want to talk about ultimate revenge spot. That was the most emotion and anger and passion I've ever seen out of the Chiefs when they played at home and lost to the Bills on that obvious offsides on Kadarius Toney. So they got a little revenge on their mind, and you're giving them 3 points. I think you got to go Chiefs here, because I think their defense is also the best unit here.
Yeah, their defense is very quietly a good unit, and they don't get much press because of Mahomes. But I'll tell you the other factor here, Sean, like just talking psychology. The Bills' window is starting to close. Yep. They have not been able to surround Josh Allen with really what would get them there. This kid is a prodigious talent. But I think the Bills have to have some serious sense of urgency here. This is the team they got to get by. And it'll be very fascinating to see if they do it. And Baltimore holds serve, what kind of conference game that would look like, because the Bills might have, like you just mentioned with Detroit, the Bills might have won their Super Bowl by beating Kansas City. Well, they have enough. But so you're on all 4 dogs this week.
Yeah.
So, how about you?
And historically, it's weird because the divisional round has been decent for some favorites, but then you look at some of the 1 seeds, especially the ones that rest. It does kind of work out for the dogs, and Kansas City Chiefs is the dog. This is Mahomes' first road playoff game, so kind of a weird setup here. Especially
there's a lot of different things in play here.
We're gonna have Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield in the NFC Conference Championship game, which no one really saw coming into.
Nobody saw that coming. No one saw Dak and Jalen Hurts sitting on the sideline.
Yeah,
Baker or Jared Goff made it back. It's a great point. All right, Sean Green, where does everybody find you besides the entourage? Where does everybody find the entourage heading this weekend?
Every Friday night live from Las Vegas at the Circa over on VSiN.com, or if you get YouTube TV, you can check us out over on VSiN there. And then Sports Gambling Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're there. Serving up a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of free picks.
NFL Divisional Round Saturday game picks, episode 272.
There you go.
There. So make sure you check that out with the great Sean Green. Sean, thank you for taking all this time. I'd like to have you back next week. We'll talk about those conference championship games and whether it's Baker or Jared in the NFC championship game. So thanks very much for all your time today. All right.
All right. Take it easy, Pat.
All right. Great Sean Green there. Nice breakdown by Sean of those 4 games. And he likes the dogs. I don't know. I'd love to see Green Bay punch San Francisco right in the mouth. That's very tough. Very tough. The way I see it, ultimately, I think it's going to be a chalk Super Bowl. I think it's going to be 1 versus 1 in the Super Bowl. We'll see if anybody throws a wrinkle in that. All right, listen, we get back. I just want to touch base here on a couple of items here as we await Ron Jaworski at the top of the hour. Look at the Eagles' 2024 schedule and a quick look back at the Wildcard weekend. That's next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Anything can happen when you go live. I got everything you need. No trouble, don't mean a thing. Snap your fingers and I'm on the scene. Don't mean a thing. Snap your fingers and I'm on the scene. Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia, voted best casino in Pennsylvania.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Welcome back this week in Pro Football. Sean Green presented by the great folks at Live Hotel and Casino in Philadelphia. Ron Jaworski coming up in just a few minutes. Let's talk, though, a couple of things here. We have a few minutes. The Peacock experiment, unfortunately, I think was a success for the NFL. Many of you are aware, all of you, I guess, that sought to watch the Kansas City-Miami game last Saturday night knew that you had to buy a Peacock subscription, in other words, behind a paywall, in order to watch the game. Now, the game drew 23 million viewers. Now, it contrasts that to Green Bay Dallas, which, of course, was the number one view, 40 million. The Rams game Sunday night against Detroit drew 36 million. Pittsburgh Buffalo Monday afternoon, 31 million. Miami KC 23. So you think to yourself, well, the NFL learned that lesson. The viewership was way off, but it's a paid viewership. If you figure 1 million people each watched in Miami and Kansas City on live TV, that leaves you with 21 million subscribers at $6 a month. That's $120 million. The Peacock paid $110 million to view or to put the game on. So the point is, I think the NFL looked at that, and I think they're going to declare that was a success. I think if 3 or 4 million had bought it, then I think the NFL would say we're going to shelve that for a few years. But no, I think you're going to see more games, more regular season, and more playoff games behind a paywall. The league is going to take a much harder look at this because it's free money. Bill Belichick, where's he going? It's a big story. There's still 7 head coach vacancies, including Vegas. Why they just haven't re-upped Antonio Pierce, I don't know. But I expect that to happen, even though I think the Raiders are I don't know why they're taking so long. The Raiders are a strange organization. But Belichick now ready for going to a second interview in Atlanta. The Falcons have some talent. They have some young talent. Certainly Arthur Smith wasn't bringing it out. We'll see. Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, will hand Belichick a blank check and just tell him to fill it in. Blank's desperate to get back to a Super Bowl, and he raced 28-3. But we'll see. Belichick right now appears to be Atlanta appears to have the inside track. The LA Chargers still a very attractive job because of Justin Herbert. Mike Vrabel interviewing out there. I could very much see Vrabel getting that job, maybe instilling a little hard-nosed attitude amongst the LA Chargers, a perennial underperformer. You still got open jobs in Seattle, Tennessee, Washington, and we'll see how that plays out. But the two biggest names right now are Vrabel and Belichick, and we'll see how the dominoes fall from that. Xander, let's bring up that Eagles 2024 schedule. This is the games have not been set yet. The dates have not been set. So, but just a look at this schedule. Of course, the Eagles play the usual suspects in the NFC East. That's numbers 1, 2, and 3 here, home and away. The Eagles also play the NFC South, which is the Atlanta Falcons and Carolina. We'll play them at home. And then they play New Orleans and Tampa Bay on the road. Now, the NFC South usually one of the weaker divisions. So I think the Eagles drew a good straw here. Carolina, well, they're not going to get great overnight. Atlanta, we'll see. We'll see if Uncle Bill is sitting on that sideline come next season. The Eagles also drew the AFC North in terms of their interconference games. So that's Cleveland at home, Pittsburgh at home, and then the Ravens and Bengals on the road. The AFC North, a tough division. There's not an easy game there. So the Eagles did not draw a good straw there. And then the extra games for the Eagles, they've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 9th home game from the AFC South. And then the Eagles also will be in Los Angeles again to play the Rams, which I don't think will be an easy game either. The Eagles went to LA and won this year. It will not be as easy a game next year. I think the Rams will be much more formidable. All right, take a look at that schedule. When we get back, the great Ron Jaworski is going to join me. I want to talk with Jaws as we finish our post-mortem on the 2023 Eagles, and also ask him about those Dallas Cowboys and that collapse and what happens on an NFL sideline when it all starts to go wrong. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan here with you. Please give me a follow on X at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. And Xander, we can't keep this gentleman waiting. This is the CEO of Ron Jaworski Golf, and a man who threw for 29,000 yards and 179 touchdowns in a very, very distinguished NFL career, and that would be the great Ron Jaworski. Ron, how you doing?
I am doing terrific, Pat, despite an ugly Eagles loss on Monday night. I'm surviving. Unfortunately, normally at this time, I'd be looking to my right shoulder, breaking down some tape, but there's nothing to break down because there's no game this weekend.
No, Ryan, you've got the rest of the winter off.
Right? Yeah, thanks, Pat.
But listen, that's a great segue because I watched a segment you did on 6 ABC last week in which you laid down 3 keys to the Eagles winning that game against Tampa Bay. You mentioned running the ball, which turned into 15 carries for 45 yards. You mentioned defending the blitz, which wasn't defended well at all. And you mentioned rushing the passer. The Eagles did have 4 sacks, but they never seemed to rattle Baker Mayfield at all. Why did the Eagles fail so badly in what you consider those 3 keys?
Yeah, Pat, whenever I talk about the game offensively, I believe running the football is absolutely paramount and critical. And yes, we all love the bombs and the play action plays to get those explosive plays. But the essence of football hasn't changed since it was invented. The essence of football is the old theory of reduction. You beat on someone until they don't want to get up anymore. And that's the physical nature of playing the game of football. And if you lose that element, I think you're in trouble. And too many times this season, I saw the Eagles get away or abandon the running game, become pass happy. And that makes it very, very difficult on your offensive line when defensive linemen just tee off and rush the quarterback all day. And especially with this team, what I think was the best offensive line in the National Football League this past season, to abandon the run is unconscionable with that offensive line. Utilize what they do. So that, to me, that's why I always start with running the football. That's the essence of football, as I said. Handle blitz was an embarrassment. Right. It really was. And I was prepared for those blitzes during my playing days by some of the greatest coaches of all time. The head coach I played for, Pat, won close to 1,000 games in the NFL. Think about 1,000 games, the guys I played for. Right. From Marty Schottenheimer to Chuck Knox to Dick Friel to Don Shula to Buddy Ryan. That's a lot of wins. That's a lot of great coaches. And I learned from those guys. And not that I'm that smart, but I learned from the best. Right. And you have to have a plan. And I'm not going to say the Eagles didn't have a plan, but whatever plan they had, they didn't execute. Right. And I went back and looked at the game in 2021, the playoff game, which we lost down in Tampa. Right. And we did a crappy job of handling the blitz in that game. Yeah. In fact, that was the most. Now that you mentioned it, we're going to just keep blitzing because they didn't have a plan to stop us from blitzing. Okay,
and you're right. But in the blitz, the running game, really, I could say the same thing. But just dealing with the blitz, the Eagles seem not to be able to handle the blitz. Think about the Giants game, the last game of the season. Over the last 6-7 weeks, the Eagles seemed all of a sudden incapable of handling another team blitzing. Do you think it was just their scheme just went wrong over that period of time?
No, I don't think it's scheme because defenses scheme against you and what you do. Defenses attack your protections. They attack your formations. And if you give them the opportunity to blitz, teams will. From Wink Martindale, the Giants, to John, to we played twice in the last 3 games of the season. Right. High percentage blitz team. To a certain degree, I think they helped Todd Bowles out and showed him some weakness. They think back to that Giants game. They were getting 2 free runners at Jalen Hurts, not 1, but 2. If the quarterback has the ball in his hand, Pat, the defense has 1 more man that they can run after. And we call them a free runner, a free hitter, whatever you want to call it, someone to run free when you go 0 coverage. But you can not go 0 coverage and still get them free runners, those free hitters, by scheme. And that's what Todd Bowles did. That's what Wink Martindale did. That's what Jonathan Gannon did. Jonathan Gannon blitzed 40% of the time. Cha-ching, the light went on for me when I broke down that game. Jonathan Gannon, who was here in Philadelphia, understands the pass protections of the Eagles and Jalen Hurts better than anybody. And he blitzed 40% of the time. That tells me something. He felt the weakness of the Eagles' passing game was to blitz Jalen Hurts and blitz the protection scheme. So it's really something. I know the coaches have a plan. These are, Jeff Stoughton's a terrific coach. Aaron Moorhead, the wide receivers coach, was with Peyton Manning and that fine group in Indianapolis when they won the Super Bowl. So you got smart guys. Right. But the plan, they may have had a plan, but it wasn't executed, and smarter coaches beat the plan.
All right. Ron Jaworski, let's then talk about Jalen Hurts, and I'd like to get your opinion. Did he regress in 2023? And if so, why do you think he did? And what does Nick Sirianni need to do to get the fire relit under him for 2024?
Well, he certainly regressed. I think the numbers are indicative of that, and the performance is indicative of that. And what I know what defensive coordinators want to do with a quarterback like Jalen. They want to get him playing fast and get his feet moving. And I think, for the first 7 or 8 games, I thought he was the front runner for the MVP. He was playing really, really good football. Something happened. I don't know what. I'm not going to blame it just on that last losing 6 or 7. Something in the middle of the season took him off his game. Now, people, surmise the knee injury because he likes to dart out of the pocket. But when people know they can force the quarterback to move, boy, that's a huge advantage because that breaks down the timing of everything. And Jalen was able to get away with it because of his running ability. But you can't make a career out of being a running quarterback. Quarterbacks have to be, and I'm not saying he's not smart because I know he's smart, but you got to be smart with the football. He's slow in the pocket. He waits too long with the football in his hand. I think the numbers I had like 3.18 seconds from drop to throw, snap to throw, is one of the slowest in the National Football League. He did not get the ball out of his hand quickly. And when defenses know that, advantage defense. And so once they got him running outside the pocket, then he started taking more hits. But that's what running quarterbacks do. They run, Pat. But I still think Jalen is going to have an outstanding career. It'll be here in Philadelphia, but he's got to get some help with these protection schemes. And I think maybe I'll chime in. I think this offense got a little stale. You know, you have to evolve your offense every single year. You can't keep doing the same thing every single year because, you know, in the NFL, they call these guys the 30-30. In the offseason, they got 30 guys making $30,000 a year, just breaking every player down of their opponent they're going to play next season. They know what time you go to the bathroom. They know when your right foot's back, which way you're going to move. They can tell by the look of your eyes. I mean, they break down every single thing. So when you get to that game on Sunday, 6 months later, they know everything about you. For offensive linemen, they know when their foot's back, their foot's up, their left arm is out. They study everything. Right. And so you know what you have to do as a player and the coaching staff from the opponent, combat that.
Right.
Do things differently. Prepare that. Evolve your own game. Evolve your own offense. I don't see the evolution of this offense all season long.
That's an excellent point, Ron. I appreciate you expounding on that. Now, are you a proponent or a believer in demeanor? I mention this because Hurts, his sideline demeanor is that he's extremely quiet. He appears isolated. He's got the greatest poker face in the National Football League. Do you think he could be more of a leader, be it vocally or just in terms of body language? Do you think he lacks there and it's something he needs to work on?
No, not at all. I think the worst thing he'd do is change who he is. I think people want you to be genuine, no matter what you are. If I played my hair on fire, I was kind of a whack job. That was me. I couldn't be like Jalen and just go home. That wasn't me. And if I would have changed my personality, people said, "What the hell's wrong with Jaws? You know, what's he on? You know." And so I think what you see with Jalen is what you get. And I love the fact that he's genuine. He's not a rah guy outwardly. But I know he's one of the hardest workers on that team, if not the hardest worker. He's very coachable. His teammates like him. He's not a jerk. He treats people with great respect and dignity. You know, we're not going to get a quarterback out of him that's going to make bold statements all the time, which we'd love to see at a press conference. He is what he is, and I think we have to accept that as his personality and accept what he is as a player. And that's a damn good player.
You're right. Well, within the context then of the Eagles, you made a reference to it, the fact that and you speculated about whether it might be an injury or something like that, but something seemed to happen, Ron, after the loss to San Francisco. The Eagles got boat raced, to use Sal Pao's term, 42-19, and it just seemed as if the team began to question whether it had what it needed to make another Super Bowl run. Do you think maybe the dreaded Super Bowl hangover just waited until week 12 to manifest with the Eagles, or do you think is there something else that could have happened within that locker room to cause their quality of play to all of a sudden drop off like that?
I don't think there was anything specifically in that locker room, but I will agree with you on this. Those two games, back-to-back, you know, that Dallas game and the 49er game, rocked the foundation of the Eagles. It rocked them. They realized they were vulnerable. To take Sal's term, boat race. They get their ass kicked. Let's be realistic about it. And I think that, you know, in that 10-1 streak, they got away with some really, really ugly wins.
Yeah.
You know, how many times are you going to – Jake Elliott can hit a 59-yard field goal in pouring rain.
Exactly.
You know, we could have lost both Washington Commander games. And we lost to the Jets. So we were 10-1, but we weren't playing 10-1 kind of football. But, hey, you're 10-1, and you are what your record says you are, according to Bill Parcells.
Right.
But I think, you know, when that 49er game, as we all know, was a game that 49ers targeted. They were pissed about what happened in Philly last year when Brock Purdy went out and Josh Johnson went out and Christian McCaffrey's now your quarterback. So they were done, but they felt they could beat us last year in the championship game. They had a chance to come to Philly and prove themselves right, and they did. They did kick our butt. So you figure, okay, you got one. We had a better team beat us. Wasn't our day. Then you go down to Dallas and get boat raced again. Right. Now the doubt starts to creep in your mind. Fair. And then they make the change with the defensive coordinator, and all those things kind of snowballed downward.
Yeah. All right, excellent. Again, that does seem like an excellent way to put it. And then now let me extrapolate, Ron, just a little bit here let's go 1,500 miles southwest to another sideline where the number 2 seed Cowboys are playing the number 7 seed Green Bay Packers, and Green Bay got in on the last day of the season. And meanwhile, the Cowboys sitting there at 2 seed, and it's Super Bowl or bust. Well, bust came up. What I want to ask you about that game is, I'm sure you watched it. When Green Bay won the toss and took the ball and proceeded to go 75 yards for a touchdown, Does something happen on the sideline of a big favorite like the Cowboys? Do 45 guys all of a sudden get a little frightened and get tight and say, "Oh my God," and then all of a sudden the game gets away from them? Is that something that tangibly happens?
I don't think one series would dictate that, but as the game wore on, you could see that they were now like it was a holy cow. It was a holy cow moment. Like they're better than the Packers. I looked at that Packer-Tampa game a few weeks before when Baker Mayfield had a perfect quarterback rating against Green Bay Packers defense. Perfect in Lambeau Field. No one in the history has had a perfect quarterback rating in Lambeau Field against the Packers. So, I think maybe to a certain degree Dallas said, hey, we're going to go out there. We're going to beat them. We got great talent. And I hate to read body language sometimes, but they show a lot of the quarterback. Obviously, the prima donna's got to have the quarterback's face on the camera. Right. Dak looked a little tight to me.
He did.
Well, maybe it's just our imagination. He's a little bit tight. He's a fun guy. He's a loose kind of guy, and he just looked tight. And I mean, the two interceptions early in the game. One return for a touchdown was really a horrible read. It was just a horrible read. The first one was kind of a good play, but he shouldn't have been going there because the coverage was tight. He should have gone somewhere else. So sometimes you can try too hard. You could try to make every play, and sometimes early in the game, you've got to be very, very careful with the football, not give an underdog a big start. But even though Dak didn't play well, the defense for Dallas should have done a better job. They were god-awful, but they have been uneven all season long. They're a front-running team, and obviously that's why Green Bay took the opening kickoff. They said, you know what? We can move the ball against this defense in Dallas. And they felt if they could get the lead, they could now dictate the terms of engagement to Dallas's offense and Dak Prescott. And that is exactly what happened. Give Coach LaFleur a lot of credit. He had a game plan, he had a schematic plan and a mental plan, and both of them worked.
All right. But just one last question on psychology, because you have stood on a number of NFL sidelines, and as I said, and you amassed an impressive array of statistics, including playing in a Super Bowl. In that Super Bowl in which you played, you remember? I'm sure I'm asking you if you remember the touchdown pass you threw.
I forgot that one.
the TD pass to Rodney Parker. It's a touchdown. The Eagles are back in the game, and a terrible flag on Harold Carmichael. They called him for what? Illegal motion or something like that.
Yeah, he's in a zoom motion across, and
right.
It was one of those splitting hairs. He could have not called it when trying to call it.
The splitting hair flag wipes out a 40-some yard touchdown. My question to you, though, is if that play had stuck, can a team like Dallas or the Eagles in 1981 in that Super Bowl in New Orleans, even though it looks like you're about to get killed like Dallas was last week, if they can hit one play, can that turn an entire team's demeanor around and really like be a do-over for a game?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's looking for that energizer, that one big play that's going to kind of get the sideline going.
Right.
It's funny you ask that question. I know the kind of direction you wanted to go, but I'm along for the film study. Like I said, I'm in my office now. It's dark on my screen, my big screen here. I'll be looking at tape. When I watch the game, I'll sit there. Remember, on the coaching tape, you see all 22, offense and defense, and you see the sideline. And you see what's going on the sideline. And I would watch tape. I'd sit in my office in those formative days at NFL Films and just click that thing back and forth. And I'd have 2 or 3 assistants guys that were my sole players that helped me break down tape.
Right.
And they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm looking at the sideline. I'm watching the sideline. I want to see where the coaches are, who's on the bench, who's staying up." Where's the excitement, the adrenaline? Where are the coaches? Are they working on the iPad? We didn't have iPads in my day, but but we had Polaroids, so let's look at on the sideline.
Right, exactly.
So I looked. Is there energy on the sideline? Are they up and let's go? Or are they sitting there sulking? And it's amazing when you look at how players are on the sideline can sometimes dictate what's happening on the field.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Exactly right. All right, Ron. Just a one-off. Eric Allen. You think he's going to make it?
Who's that?
Eric Allen. You think he makes it to the Bowl?
I've been rooting for Eric Allen for years to get in the Hall of Fame. I think he should be. I don't think he is. It's just no reason why not, because every reason is he should be in.
Yeah, 18 years.
Great, one of the greatest cover corners in Philly history and NFL history as well. Why? It's hard. And Pat, I've seen Vermeil get in. I've lobbied for Vermeil. I lobbied for Harold Carmichael with the voters, and fortunately we got 2 guys in. It is really tough, and I always say this: it should be tough. It is the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and it should be hard to get into because it's more worthy when it's harder to get in. But Eric Allen deserves to get in. But I'm thankful for my guys, Dick Vermeil and Harold Carmichael got in. Boy, it was a great weekend in Canton for each of those guys.
That's right. And one last thing, do you see this? I see this as being chalk, Ron. I see the Ravens and 49ers holding serve and playing in the Super Bowl. Do you think anybody else amongst the final 8 has a chance to elbow their way in?
Yeah, it's the playoffs, but I would have to tendency to agree with you. But I think what we got to see from Lamar is, he has struggled in the playoffs. He has struggled against really good, disciplined defense, and he's got to prove that he won't make mistakes, that he can throw accurately into the Texans' complex coverages. They do a lot of good things with D'Amico Ryans now, so they're going to try to rent Space's mind. In other words, force him to make mistakes. So Lamar's had a phenomenal year. He'll be the league MVP, but playoffs are different. And the Ravens had a lot of time to study that tape on the Texans.
All right. Ryan, CEO of Jaworski Golf. Are you excited about 2024? Things looking sharp. I guess I think the golf craze is going to stay strong. And I played some of your courses. They're all always in excellent shape. Excited to get the clubs out of the garage this year.
Now, I look outside and the snow is ready to come down. There's snow on the ground. I was down in Florida over the weekend for 2 days, so I had to go down for a wedding. But it was nice to be 75 and sunny. But it'll be back. But Pat, you're right. The golf business is on fire. I mean, I've never seen the golf industry in general as many players. The women, the kids. It's great to see it. It's a great game. It's great for friendship. It's great for exercise. It's great for bonding with people. And when you and I get together, you're the better putter, but I hit it still a little bit further than you. We'll give it our friends at the M&T outing again.
That's right. I look forward to another round with you for sure, and look forward to checking out all those courses. They're always in great shape. And thank you very much.
I got a good team. It's all about my team.
Thank you very much for joining me tonight. It was great having you on, and wish you all the best.
I will see you down the road, Pat. Thank you.
All right, Ron Jaworski. Thank you very much, Ron. The great Ron Jaworski joining me there. That'll do it for this edition of This Week in Pro Football. This weekend, as I said, I'm talking chalk, so I can't back off it now. I think the Ravens will be scared by Houston, but I think the Ravens win. I think Green Bay is not going to beat San Francisco. I'd love it if they did, but I don't see it. I think the Packers' magical mystery tour runs out. 49ers win. And then on Sunday, I think Tampa-Detroit is kind of a coin flip, but I think Detroit holds serve. I think all the favorites, unlike Sean, I think all the favorites hold serve here. I think Buffalo's going to beat Kansas City. And I think the Chiefs receivers at some point, their lack of quality receivers is going to manifest. I think it does. This Sunday, I think Buffalo wins. And Buffalo-Baltimore would be a heck of an AFC championship game. All right. Thank you very much to Xander Krause for producing. Thanks very much to Sal Paolantonio, Ron Jaworski, Sean Green for joining me. We look forward to talking to you next week on a conference championship edition of This Week in Pro Football.